Hello everyone, good afternoon. I hope you can all hear and see me okay. Thank you very much for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar. My name is Sebastian Bampton. I'm one of the account managers over here at Your Overseas Home. Today we'll be chatting with Emma from JLCA Lawyers all about Spain's residency and visa updates and how we can navigate this year's Schengen area EES changes. So if you're looking to buy in Spain this year or even into 2026, you're in the right place, and thank you very much for joining us. Emma, great to have you here with us. I'll pass across to you just to do a quick intro to yourself and obviously LCA, and then if you could pass back over to me and we can obviously go through to the next part of the webinar.
Thanks very much for the introduction. My name is Emma Belgum. I've been working for JLCA Lawyers for over 15 years. We're a Spanish legal firm. We've been established over 25 years in total. We've got expertise in many areas, specializing in residency and purchase operations. Although we are based in Spain, our main office is in Alicante. We have offices also in Madrid. We do have a UK and also a Miami office from which we can help with our clients. One of the key things we really like to focus on here is understanding. It's not just about translation, it's about interpretation and just being clear about every step as you go along. From that point of view, I would encourage anyone, if they've got questions, do please ask. And if you're not able to get through in this webinar, do contact me separately. I'd be more than happy to run through all your queries.
Brilliant, thanks Emma. So it's great to have you here with us, and I know you and I have been working with each other for a number of years, but also Your Overseas Home and JLCA, and you know the experience, the knowledge, and the support that you've offered to not just our clients, but you know all the other hundreds of clients that have undertaken a journey of investing or buying property in Spain has been invaluable. So thanks so much for being here again with us, and for everyone listening in. Thank you all for being here, whether you are watching live or on demand. As Emma mentioned, we do encourage you to ask as many questions as you'd like. So at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a questions tab. If you click on that, you can type in any questions, either focus on residency and visas, any particular concerns that you have around buying in Spain. I'm sure Emma will hopefully be able to answer them. And if you want to test it out now, maybe just type in where in Spain you're looking so you can see how it works, and we can look through and see where you're looking to potentially invest. So yeah, throughout that session, we'll get around to answering as many of them as possible. Before we jump into the Q&A, Emma, I believe you've got a few slides that you just want to take us through, explaining a little bit about JLCA services, but also the visa side of things as well. So, Emma, back over across to you, and we'll get through into the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't want to sort of take up too much of this time, because obviously it's nice when people can ask the questions that are pertinent, but I want to give some general information. Obviously, I've already given a little bit of a background about who we are and what we do. So I'm sort of going to focus on one topic. Do you want to be a tourist or do you want to be resident? This is sort of something that comes up a great deal. There is only two options. You are either one or the other. So if you want to remain as a tourist, then you are going to be bound by the 90 and 180 days rule. There are all sorts of calendars that you can use to keep track of this to make it easier, but this is what we're stuck with because of Brexit, obviously. Same situation with the US. Now, at this point, a visa isn't required. There's a lot of talk, obviously, about the new ETIAS system. It's been delayed a few times. Now they're talking about the latter part of 2026. From our own point of view, we're expecting it to be something along the lines of the ESTA that you have already in the States, which is, you know, just some very general information that you need to provide, and not too expensive a charge which covers a few years. But until it's actually getting ready to be launched, we won't have concrete information. Now, the electronic entry exit system is expected later this year, so we are told that this isn't going to sort of make too much difference to people. It should just happen as you're passing through the airport, but that's the use of more of the electronic data that we already have. You've got electronic passports. There are facial recognition, obviously, when they're checking it, and it's more about them registering that information and what they might do to that. in terms of residency, if the Schengen doesn't work for you, then the next step would to be looking into a residency option. Now, there's lots of different options, and everything depends on what you're planning to do in Spain and what your situation is. The key thing is that once you are becoming resident, you need to be thinking in terms of being here for a minimum of 183 days per year. Doesn't matter when in the year, just 183 minimum. And for renewal, some of them are looking at 185 days. So again, always depends on what you're planning to do. So what I thought I would just mention some of the most common ones that we see. The most common I would say is the non-lucrative visa, the NLV, the non-working visa. This is sort of aimed at those are retired, semi-retired, early retired. You cannot work, not in Spain and not elsewhere. It is based on you having a passive income and living in Spain. The digital nomad, that one is more set up for people that are planning to work not in Spain, outside of Spain on a remote basis. So I appreciate, particularly after COVID, a lot of people have found themselves in the position where their work is more on a remote style. So quite often that can be adapted so that you could be sitting in the sun rather than sitting back in the UK getting cold doing the same job. Work visas. So there's different types of work visas. This could be where you've already got a job offer in Spain and the company will be working with you to process it, or whether you're looking to come across and set up a business, work as self-employed, in which case you need to provide information and business plan for the consulate to approve for you to come across. There's also a lot of people that are asking about EU passports. I appreciate that there's a very large increase in Irish people since Brexit, where people have managed to, through descendancy, obtain an Irish passport, for example, and other EU countries. It is quite an advantage if somebody does have that from the point of view of the options that are available. But do remember, there is still a process that you have to go through registering as a resident here, and a few keys and tips that we would provide to you depending on what else you're going to be doing in Spain to make that a little bit easier. Or as I say, I've literally just rattled through a few of the most common types that we've got. Any questions that anyone might have about other types of visas, we do cover everything from our office. We've got specific immigration specialists that deal with this. So please, any questions you have, feel free.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Say it's you make it look very simple on the screen. I know when you break it down to are you staying long term or full time, or perhaps just coming across for a holiday home, it's easier to then decide perhaps which avenue or what course of direction the client perhaps needs to go into. So thank you for sharing that. We've got quite a few questions that have come through. So thank you everyone that's posting these questions, and we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. A good place to start, Emma, would be buying a property overseas or in your home country is a big undertaking, even more so overseas with foreign laws, foreign languages, different processes, visas and residencies. Where does that kind of fit into the process? When would you advise someone to start thinking about what visas they need? Perhaps if they're looking to become a resident, when would that normally come in regards to the actual buying process or buying journey from your experience?
I think it's a really good idea to be thinking about all of these aspects in advance when you're making your plans, because it can vary. I mean, you can become resident in Spain and then buy a property, or you can buy a property and then become a resident in Spain. Property ownership isn't a requirement of residency. It depends on what your situation is and what you want to do. I mean, for many, to already have a property in Spain that you've been using and gotten used to and got set up, having that ready so that when you come over to Spain, because obviously it's a stressful move, it's a big change, having your own home over here already is quite a comfort. Whereas others, they're really not too sure yet where they want to be. they're not 100% sure if they're committed, they just want to give it a try, then they might want to come out here to start off with and start looking for a property. The main thing you need to have in mind is that when you're coming over here, you will need somewhere that you're living, whether it is a long-term rental or maybe a family member has got a property that you're using. It is something that you have to have prepared in advance, and in order to have the correct paperwork for the second stage here. Also, key thing is timings, because the non-lucrative visa, it must be done from the country of origin. It cannot be done from Spain. So when you're working out where you're going to be in the UK in particular, your passport is taken in when you have your appointment and give your paperwork. So while that's being processed, you won't be able to leave the UK, not until you've got it back with the visa. So if somebody's selling a property to come over to Spain, then they're going to need somewhere to stay in that interim. So it's all of those little details that are really good to discuss with somebody, so that they can get their plans together and then decide, right, now I'm ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I appreciate for people listening in, you know, the fun part of buying property overseas is going across, well, being online, looking at properties, but also going across and you know, visiting them. And you know, if you do find that right property and you fall in love with it, in theory, things can move relatively quickly. And if you're then playing catch up with visa, residencies, but also potentially mortgages and all the other parts of the process, you can be sort of running around like a headless chicken. So, you know, everyone listening in, you're one step in front of everyone else if you're thinking about the visa part of the journey. And I know Emma is more than happy to have that conversation with you as early as you'd like, to understand your unique requirements and then put forward a plan to help you throughout that journey. So that's great. Yeah, so we've got a few questions now. One of the questions we've got here, Emma, is from Andy. I know there's quite a lot of discussions online around the NIE numbers and bank accounts set up. And do you mind just giving us a bit of context to what the NIE number actually is, and also the sort of the bank account side of things, and how that is relevant for applications around visas, but also buying a property in Spain?
Okay. Well, the NIE number is a foreigner's identification number. The closest I would equate it to is your national insurance number in the UK, tax reference number in the US. It's literally just a reference number for paying taxes. You will need one when you're buying a property. It's needed for the very final stage, for the actual signing, because obviously the property tax, you pay for the property, it's notarized, then you pay the taxes that are due, and those vary depending on the autonomous region or whether it's off plan and resale. And that's what the NIE number is then needed for. Plus, it's a unique identifier for people, because obviously passports do change. There's several ways that you can apply for an NIE number. You can do it through the Spanish consulate in the country of origin. We can help you with that if we offer services to step you through that, because you do need to attend in person, or we can arrange it for people by power of attorney. Now, again, this is very dependent on what your plans and how you're arranging things. If you are buying a property first, you will need it for the purchase of the property. If you are doing the residency first, some versions of the visa will actually assign you one if you don't already have one. So if you were doing the non-lucrative and then buying a property later on, you wouldn't need to do it separately. But if you are purchasing first, you would need that. In terms of a bank account, a lot of the information that Spanish bank accounts require is the same as you would expect in other countries, just an evidence of your income and your address and who you are. You will need an NIE number to have it properly active, although non-residents can have an account. There are specific non-resident accounts that you have here in Spain, so setting up an account isn't difficult. We would always recommend, when you're purchasing a property, to have a Spanish bank account. This is because still traditionally in most places the final payment is either made by bank order or an instantaneous transfer, because the money has to be sent and received on the same day. at the notary in order for them to notarize and complete the purchase. So if there's any delays with the transfer or the payment, then you'll find that you won't be able to sign on that day and you're incurring delays depending on what your contract agreement was. Having the Spanish bank account eliminates that. And from our point of view as well, we prefer to have the transparency of clients having their last payments and such coming out of their own account so that they can see exactly where things are going and why and have complete control. In terms of the residency, it's not a requirement to have a Spanish bank account for residency. For example, if you're showing savings, you can do that from a UK account. It's just having sufficient documentation that is needed that's the equivalent that you would provide in Spain, or you can open one. Now, we would, as part of our services for property purchase, we do include normally using a power of attorney for people. In which case we can open the bank account for them in their name. They're the only ones that have access to it online, etc. But we can open it for them and get everything up and running for them. So it makes it a lot easier. And another sort of aside, sort of something you mentioned before, where people are juggling residency, being in the UK, and a purchase process, by having that power of attorney, you don't have to worry that your visa's issued in time for you to come over for the purchase signing, because we can do that for you.
Okay, brilliant, Emma. Thank you. You say it's very clear. I think Andy was going to, I did ask, if it's something that JLCA can help with, and yeah, it sounds like you can help with, obviously the NIE numbers, but also the power of attorney part of it, and just making it a bit easier and smoother throughout that process. So thanks very much for the question, Andy. We'll move on to the next one, Emma. So we've got a question here from Steve, who is looking to move across to North Costa Blanca within the next 6 months, which I'm very jealous about. Steve says that he'll be looking to get the non-lucrative visa, but asks, is it easy to change it to a lucrative visa after the first year so we can get a job, or perhaps a digital nomad visa or a work visa? So is it easy to kind of transition from one visa to a different visa over a period of time? Is that something that potentially Steve's allowed to do?
It's an excellent point, actually, and something that I bring up quite often with people. Obviously, because of no longer being part of Europe, coming across to work in Spain is a lot more difficult. And unless you slot into one of the specific visa types, you don't have the automatic right to work in Spain. So what a lot of people do is use other visas as stepping stones in order to then change to the visa that they want to be on later on. They would need to be a minimum of a year, so you can't do it until after a year of being on the non-lucrative visa and obviously complying with the requirements. And then it is possible to transition to a work visa if you've got a contract, for example, to work locally. That can be processed. If you've been setting up a business ready to start running yourself as self-employed and registered in here with a tax system to pay here, then it is possible indeed to do that. And it's a good option for people for two things as well. Sometimes having that first year, you can actually use it as advantage to gain the knowledge of the locals of business, to be looking for work, to get yourself set up and settled before you then look at getting back into work.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, great question, and yeah, thank you, Emma, for answering. Very clear. Yeah, great. Just while we're on the topic of non-lucrative visas, Emma, I know when you mentioned it earlier, you were discussing around the income threshold that someone needs in order to be eligible for that visa. One of the questions I can see here up here is around pensions, and would a state pension here in the UK count towards that income that is needed for that visa?
Yeah, a pension income can be used. It is an annual income. You just have to show evidence of that, which is obviously the annual summary that you're going to be receiving. As long as we would always say that the minimum amount right now for the applicant is €28,800. That's the minimum. It's better obviously to be over, but this can be income from pensions, investments, dividends. You can have savings, or you can have a mixture. It's just to show that over the course of the year you've got that specific amount, and it needs to be shown specifically at the appointment, and then you'll need to show again your income on renewals from Spain.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Thank you very much, Emma. And how does it work? perhaps some of our listeners here are looking to apply for visas or come across to Spain, either with their partner or with a family. How does that work in relation to visas? Is it one application, or do they have to do multiple applications? How does it change if it's more than one person applying?
Okay. Well, it is dependent, obviously, on the type of visa. There are some variations. The most common situation, and let's stick with the non-lucrative, as that's the one that we've spoken about the most. You can have dependent family members. So you can have, for example, the main applicant, the spouse, and the children. Now, we say that they're added to the application. What it means is that the people that are being added are supported by the applicant. So, for example, for a husband and wife that are applying, they have to show, instead of 28,800 each between the two of them, it would be 36,000, and each one of those has to children can be added again afterwards, and there's a supplement for each of the children. It is actually appointments for everybody because everybody needs their own visa, but they would all then be based on the original applicant.
Okay. Right, brilliant. That's good to know, and thank you very much for the question around that. I know there's a lot of questions coming through, Emma. I think there's over 30 or 40 questions, so we're trying to pick out ones which we can answer from a few people. So we answered. Gary asked, is renting a room like an Airbnb classified as passive income? That would count towards the income threshold, wouldn't it, if someone is generating income?
Rental income is a passive income. You've got that sort of fine line where somebody is renting a property, but then they're actually selling services and invoicing clients for separate things. That would be more borderline and an issue. But where you're actually receiving income from renting, it is passive, and it's absolutely fine to include. And that could be in Spain or in the UK or wherever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Got a question here relating to digital nomad visas from Gurmil. Gurmil asked, is there a requirement to be physically present in Spain more than 100 or 183 days a year to be eligible for the digital nomad visa?
Yes.
Yes, good. Well answered.
Yes.
I think there's a little bit, instead I'm less risky of being a resident there for tax. I know tax as well, when it comes down to residency, there are some
Well,
implications.
this is the thing. If you are going to be becoming resident in Spain, the majority now will require you to be fiscally resident in Spain. There is an exception of this where Beckham's law can be applied in certain employees of digital nomad, and it's specific for that. It doesn't work for digital nomad as freelance or self-employed, and the golden visa has gone. So all of the rest of them generally will require you to be fiscally resident in Spain. Now, that is not a double taxation of your income. Obviously, there are taxation treaties between many countries, UK and Spain, obviously, and that's taken into account. But what often can happen, is that people find that afterwards, once it's assessed on a Spanish scale, that they might have to additionally contribute in Spain. It's not like a flat percentage. It's very dependent on your specific circumstances and income.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Emma. I think everyone listening in here would all agree that nobody wants to be taxed potentially more than they should, especially twice. So if there are concerns around that or any questions, please do get in touch with Emma, because if we can save you some of your holiday and cash from the tax man, then I'll be very happy. So yeah, really important topic and conversational piece there is around the tax side of things. So yeah, we'll move on to the next question, because we've got a few. Well, we've got about 10 minutes or so left. Kevin here has asked around him and his spouse planning to apply for the golden visa for Portugal, but would like to move to Spain before the end of 2026. Is there any issue getting a non-lucrative visa in Spain if they are in Portugal on the golden visa program? Good question, that, Kevin.
You need to apply from the country where you are resident. So it can't be applied for in Spain, the non-lucrative. What it would be more likely is to have a look at your situation at that time to see what other options there are. I would say that one is come to us when you're actually got those papers, and then we can look at which way it is. But you can't apply for the non-lucrative from Spain. It can't be done from Spain. There are other
Yeah.
visa types
Okay.
which
So
can be, but it depends on what you qualify, how long you've been resident elsewhere, where you're coming from the golden visa to go to Portugal, where you're sitting as a resident, because obviously with golden visas you've got options. I mean, the one that was in Spain, that if you were under 183 days you weren't considered fiscally resident, whereas if you were over 183 days you were considered fiscally resident. So it depends on what the details are for that. That would need to have a look specifically at your situation, but definitely not a non-lucrative, because you can't apply for that from Spain. But there are other options.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it sounds like there's a few variables that you need to understand to yeah, I suppose give the correct guidance or advice. And Kevin, by the sounds of things, it's definitely worthwhile to have a conversation with Emma or JLCA team just to understand how they could assist for your unique requirements. So yeah, so thanks Emma for that one. We'll move on to some of the other questions. Jose here asks, would he be able to set up an Airbnb with a non-lucrative visa in Spain, or would there be another visa that would be better suited for his plans?
Depends on what exactly his plans are. I mean, you can rent, if you're already non-lucrative visa, you can rent property out using Airbnb or any other firm. What starts changing things is when you're getting some kind of income or salary from it. If you're just earning off of the income from the rentals, then that's passive. But as soon as you start setting up a business, then that's no longer the non-working visa, the non-lucrative visa. Again, after that year of being a non-lucrative visa, then you've got options of setting yourself up as a business if that's what you want to do. So it really depends on how he wants to run this.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's we have had a few clients that well they've been living over there, but then went on holiday and Airbnb'd their properties out, and I think that was absolutely fine. But I think given what you're looking to do, Jose, it might be worthwhile just to double check and have that conversation. So a good question here from Emma. I know we may have touched on it at the beginning of the webinar. Emma mentioned that she's looking to potentially move within the next 2 to 3 years. How early is it that someone should start applying for a visa, and how long does that process normally take once an application is submitted to them being approved and receiving that visa?
Okay, it's a good idea if you've got plans in 2 or 3 years to have a think about it and sort of see what the options are. But it is too early to be thinking in terms of actually making an application. It's more concreting which type of visa that you're going to be doing. And then at that point, working out the timescale, because there's very big timescale differences depending on which type that you're looking for. The digital nomad, for example, in theory, has a very short period of approval, and it can be done from Spain or from the country of origin. But there is a huge amount of paperwork that is required in a very particular format, because although it's a relatively new visa and they've got the guidelines set out, people's work varies so much, exactly what they do, how they do it, that there's a lot of documentation that may or may not need to be translated, and there's certain documents that need to be legalized within a specific period of time. So the actual collation of information you need before your appointment is the part that takes a long time. The non-lucrative visa, for example, typically we would like to be in contact and we start working with people a month and a half before they're planning to have their appointment. Typically it takes 6 to 9 weeks, but it depends on the consulate for the visa. And then following that, you would then be coming over to do the second stage of getting your TIE card. So it's relatively quick in that scenario. So it really depends on working out which type of visa you're thinking of going to see how long that time scale is, and then being able to apply to see when you need to be thinking about applying.
Yeah, absolutely. I say great question, and I think it's one of the things. There's so much to think about when buying property, even more so overseas. And I think that preparation point is key. Making sure you've got all the right documentation. Just out of curiosity as well, Emma, when we're talking about applying for visas, under what circumstances may a visa be rejected? You know, is that common, or is there sort of things that people can navigate or watch out for? What are perhaps some of the common reasons for a visa to be rejected?
In theory, there's no reason for any visa to be rejected as long as you fulfill the requirements. This is sort of the whole point. If you are looking to do a non-lucrative visa, then you will need to have a specific income and a set of documents, criminal history record, medical cover, all of these things. As long as you tick all of those boxes, there's no reason for it to be denied. Digital nomad, as long as you actually fall into the category that they class as a digital nomad and provide the specific documentation, again, you shouldn't be denied the visa. Where I've seen them is where the profile isn't seen to fit digital nomad, for example, or we can't go to that last stage because when you're pulling the numbers together, they aren't able to show until they've sold their house that they've got that money, even though effectively they've got it. You have to be able to show at the appointment that those funds are there.
Okay, yeah. I think so. It's one of those things that with these rejections, I think having that conversation early, you will be able to advise what visa is best suited for that for those requirements. And obviously, then there wouldn't be the rejection when it goes through to actually applying for the visa. So yeah, that conversation is being so important. Emma, we mentioned earlier around golden visas, and the Spanish have now scrapped that program. Kate's got a question here. I know we don't have a crystal ball, but is there risks in the future, perhaps, that the Spanish government may drastically change some of the rules for the non-lucrative visa or digital nomad visa? Is there anything in the news or any conversations happening among politicians over in Spain that something could be changing over the next couple of years?
To that kind of extent, no. I mean, we've constantly got changes going on, and right now there's quite a lot of different changes that are happening. In particular, for example, with the student visas, the regulations around those are changing. There was in the past, people would look at getting a student visa, coming across and studying English for the year, and look at that as a stepping stone to change. Whereas the new changes now won't allow that. You have to continue studying for several years after that before you're able to do so, which doesn't make it the quick, easy stepping stone anymore. The non-lucrative visa is really important to understand. It wasn't created for Brexit. It has been around for a very long time. It's what the Australians, what the Americans, the Canadians were already using before the UK fell into that particular bracket. So it's quite a stable one. They've had changes. They've talked about making other changes, which haven't happened, but they are in many places cracking down to make sure that you are not working, that you do specifically fit for that criteria. And the digital nomad, the documentation side is more heavy, where they've got people with qualifications, needing to homogenize them for Spain in order for the qualifications to be applied here. But there's always changes, but not massive ones. And there's no talk of a new golden visa. I mean, we would like to see that happen, because obviously it was a great opportunity for people. If it did, we would imagine it would come up at a higher level than it was previously at 500,000. But there is no talk of a new one at the moment. As soon as there is, we will let everybody know.
Yes, please do. No, I guess if there was to be changes as well, nothing really happens overnight, and you would be the first to know over there at JLCA, and you could inform everyone listening in, or whoever's working with you, of those changes, so they can prepare in the future. But so far, nothing on the horizon, which is good. We've got lots and lots of questions, Emma. I know we've gone slightly over time, but we'll carry on and just try and get through as many of these as we can. Malcolm has asked, has told us that he's retiring early, but his pension isn't starting for another 6 years. So, Malcolm, congratulations first of all on the early retirement. He's got a significant funds in a bank account. Let's say, if someone perhaps has retired early but doesn't have an income to show for the non-lucrative visa, but they have significant funds in a UK bank account, would that still be okay for the visa? Would it have to be an actual income
No, it's actually easier if you've got savings, and much quicker and easier to process, because there's less paperwork for them to look at. All they want to know is, do you have this money on this day?
Yeah.
Obviously, for renewals, you have to show it again, but having those funds in a bank account is the easiest way to demonstrate your funds, and it's there already and clear, and ticks that one off the box for you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emma, and thank you, Malcolm, for the question. We've got one here from Keith, which I will probably answer a few questions further up on the screen as well. But Keith asked, what percentage of money would you need to budget or add to the cost of a Spanish property purchase to cover potential taxes, visas, private healthcare, which I know we haven't mentioned as well. But have you got a rough ballpark? I know it may vary, Emma, but of how much people should budget on top of a property purchase?
I really don't, because everything is so dependent on what you're buying for, what type of visa you're doing, which area you're buying in. The autonomous regions have different taxes. If you're applying with a cash purchase or a Spanish mortgage, if you're buying off plan or if you're buying a resale, all of these different things have different implications and costs. What I would suggest in that instance is, please contact us, let us know what you're planning to do, and we'll work it out in your instance, the rough guide of where you're going to be. Again, health insurance, we would never want to try and quote, because it's entirely dependent on your own personal medical history, which we aren't privy to, and obviously wouldn't be able to quote what amount of money you need to pay. But getting a quote from many of these insurance companies isn't difficult, and I can provide examples of all of these for you to have a look at and get some free quotes, just to get yourself an idea of what things would cost.
Yeah, that's a big important point which you haven't touched upon, is around the healthcare side of things, and you know, if it's actually needed for a visa. So is it mandatory to have healthcare cover in order to apply for all types of visa? Is that something that will be needed from everyone listening in?
It is. You have to. It's mandatory for everything, including applications with an EU passport. They also have to show sufficient medical cover, just so that everybody's clear on that. There is a bit of an exception in terms of the UK, because there is still a reciprocal agreement which has always stood between the UK and Spain, and that applies for state pensioners, those that are eligible for the S1 form in the UK. You are able to apply for reciprocal cover here in Spain. Now, this specifically with a non-lucrative visa, you can actually, we can manipulate this to use within the application itself. All of the other applications, you would have to have medical cover to start with, and then once you're a resident in Spain, you can use it to apply for. Or if somebody, when they reach pensionable age, then gets the S1 form a few years later, they'd be able to. But obviously the situation is different if you're coming across to work, because if you're in the tax system here, then you're possibly going to be eligible for the system here anyway through your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it, Emma. It does sound like there's so many different options depending on what your requirements are. So it's just one of the things I would like to get it right. I want to make sure I have the right cover, the right visa, and I can see there's over 100 questions in here now, all relating to individual requirements. So that's why it's so important to have that conversation, understand exactly what's needed for you or your partner and your family to move across to Spain. We got questions, one here from David. Emma, David asked, if you were to swap visa types, so for example, moving from a non-lucrative to then a digital nomad visa, do they both count towards the 5 years required for residency, or would it have to be on one certain visa or throughout that period?
It's the period that you're fiscally resident.
Okay.
So if you're fiscally resident in Spain and you're paying taxes, those are the sort of the key points.
Okay, brilliant. That's very clear. Thank you, David, for the question. We've got one from Attila here, asking around mortgages. First of all, I know that you're not a mortgage broker, Emma, but is it possible to get mortgages in Spain? And also, is it something that you could help with at all?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, you can get a mortgage in Spain as a resident or as a non-resident. It's important to understand that mortgages here are quite different. First of all, it's typically 60 to 70% as a maximum that's offered, but you have different costs here, because you've got the purchase price, and then you've got your notary, your registry, your taxes that have to be paid on top. Also here in Spain, mortgage deeds are inscribed, notarized and inscribed at registry, as well as the purchase. So there's sort of more steps to go through, and 2 notary signings that have to be dealt with. It can be done by power of attorney again, so it's not necessarily an issue. If you're with a specific bank, we can broker with them mortgage options, or you can speak with a mortgage broker to have a look at what's the best option for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We speak to countless numbers of clients every week who are looking to apply for mortgage. And I know it is actually fairly straightforward to do, but there are certain criteria, just like visas, I suppose, that you need to be able to hoops to jump through to be eligible for a mortgage. But your overseas home also work with mortgage providers in Spain, and we'd be happy to assist if you are looking to raise some financing over in Spain or here in the UK, or wherever it may be. So we'll move on. Emma, how are you for time? Are you okay just to answer a few more questions?
Absolutely.
I know we've gone over.
I'm feeling very popular at the minute, so hey, fire away.
Yeah, it's great for the ego, isn't it? No, you're doing amazing. Say it's absolute crazy in the questions tab at the moment, which is what we love to see. We have a question here. I've just scrolled past. It's from Kevin. If you have a partner in Spain who is a resident and you plan to live there initially with them, is there an option to gain a visa ahead of any personal house purchase, and is there advantage anyway?
Need a bit more specification. If a partner, just partner as in somebody that you've been living with, cohabiting partner, you have less options to use their residency status. A spouse or civil registered partner, it can be used to attach to their residency if they are currently resident in Spain. So it sort of depends on their situation. It's not something you do in advance of something else, it's another option. But attaching to somebody that's resident in Spain from a non-EU country has a very complicated system. I mean, what the consulate says it takes, and what it actually takes is considerably longer, and you have to wait in the UK for its approval. So sometimes when it's a case of that, it's easier to do the non-lucrative, which is quicker to get to Spain in the first place. So a bit more information about that, I might be able to guide you better if you want to ask me about
absolutely.
that.
What we'll do as well, Emma, we'll pass across the questions that we've had today to you and the team. So, if there's anything that any of the listeners would like to ask urgently, the contact details on the screen, but also, Emma, I suppose you and the team could then follow up with them individually and have that conversation regarding their requirements. That's great. So I know there's a few more in here. They are relatively unique to individual circumstances. So I think it's probably best that we take those offline. But yeah, thank you everyone for all the questions. And Emma, thank you so much for your time, but also all the answers, knowledge, experience. It's a pleasure having you here, and we're very lucky to be able to put these questions to you and assist everyone who's listening and hopefully fulfill their dreams of owning a property over in Spain. If you are looking to go undertake this process, we do strongly advise to get in touch as early as you like and as early as possible to have this conversation, not just around the visa side of things, because I know it is important, but also the LCA can guide you throughout the whole process when it comes down to conveyancing. Tax, again, is very important. So do have that conversation early. And yeah, before we finish, if you found this useful, there should be a pop-up on the screen from Trustpilot. If you would like to leave Emma and I a glowing review, we'd be very, very happy, and I'm sure our bosses would love to see it as well, so we'd really appreciate it. And there'll also be another pop-up, I believe, for any up and coming webinars we have around Spain and buying properties in Spain. We cover all topics. We're here to assist and guide you through them with the knowledge and experience from our partners. So click on the link on your screen if you'd like to join us for any more of our live webinars. This will also be sent around to you on demand, so you can rewatch it in your own time. But Emma, back over to you. Thank you so much for being here as always, and thanks for your questions and all your answers. So Emma, thanks again.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure to join us, and I do hope those questions will come in. I shall quite enjoy answering them all.
Great stuff. We'll get them across to you as soon as we can, Emma. But yeah, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the evening over in Spain.
You too.
Cheers, Emma. Bye bye.